Welcome back to the NBA Saga. Thank you for tuning in and spending your time with us today. In this episode, we are going to revisit one of the most famous origin stories in basketball history. The story that says Michael Jordan was cut from his high school team. You have probably heard it from coaches, motivational speakers, maybe even from your own friends. They say that the greatest player of all time was rejected as a kid, told he was not good enough, and then came back to conquer the world. But here is the real question. Is that story completely true? Or has it been polished and simplified into a legend that is only half accurate? Today, we dive deep into that moment. We will separate fact from exaggeration, and we will also talk about why this story matters so much to our idea of greatness, failure, and second chances. First, let us start with the classic version of the story. The one you often hear goes something like this. Michael Jordan tried out for his high school basketball team. The coach cut him. Jordan went home, cried, worked harder than ever, and came back to become Michael Jordan. It is a powerful story because it is simple. It sounds like a clean Hollywood script. You are rejected once, you grind, you come back and become a legend. But life is almost never that simple, and neither is this story. The truth is that Jordan was not cut from basketball completely. He was cut from the varsity team as a sophomore. He ended up playing on the junior varsity team instead. That difference might sound small, but it changes how we understand the whole situation. At that time, Jordan was about 510 and still growing. He was talented, explosive, but not yet the finished product. His close friend Leroy Smith was taller, around 67, and the varsity team badly needed size. So when the coaches had to choose which sophomore would get the varsity spot, they chose Smith. Jordan's name appeared on the JV list, not the varsity list. For a competitive teenager like Jordan, that was devastating. He has talked about how embarrassed he felt. He has described going home, shutting the door, and crying. So yes, from his perspective, it felt like being cut. He wanted varsity. He believed he deserved varsity. He did not get varsity. That emotional experience is real. The feeling of rejection, the humiliation, the anger, those are not rumors. Those are part of the fuel that shaped his mentality. But from the coach's point of view, the decision was more practical than personal. They had height needs. They had roster limits. They had to think about team balance, not just potential. Jordan was not sent away from the game. He was not told to quit. He was placed on JV, expected to develop and dominate there, and that is exactly what he did. On the junior varsity team, Jordan destroyed opponents. He scored heavily. He played big minutes. He treated every game like it was a statement. He turned JV into his laboratory for greatness. Over the next year, his body changed too. He grew several inches. His athletic gift started to catch up with his ambition. He came back the next season, made varsity, and immediately became a star. So when people ask, was MJ cut from his high school team, or is it just a rumor? The most accurate answer is this. He was cut from the varsity team as a sophomore. He was not cut from basketball. The story is true in spirit, but exaggerated in how it is usually told. Now, why did this story become such a myth? Why did it turn into a kind of basketball fairy tale? One reason is Jordan himself. He brought up that experience many times. He mentioned it in interviews. He talked about it in his Hall of Fame speech. He used that moment as a symbol of doubt, disrespect, and motivation. For Jordan, not making varsity became a permanent chip on his shoulder. It was a core memory he never let go of. He turned one decision by one coach into a lifelong source of fire. The media then picked up this story and simplified it further. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school team sounds more dramatic than Michael Jordan did not make varsity as a sophomore and played JV instead. The shorter version is easier to repeat. It fits perfectly into motivational speeches and social media captions. So over time, the story lost its nuance. People started imagining a coach telling Jordan, "You are not good enough to play basketball here," and sending him home. That never happened. But the emotional truth of rejection remained. Youth coaches also love this story. On the day they post final rosters, they tell players, "Hey, even Michael Jordan got cut." It is a way to comfort kids. a way to say, this is not the end. You can still become great. That is why this rumor stays alive. It is useful, it is inspiring, it is simple enough that anyone can remember it. But there's a danger in oversimplifying it, because not every kid who gets cut is Michael Jordan. Not every setback is secretly the beginning of a GOAT story. Jordan is the exception, not the rule. What makes his story powerful is not just that he got cut, it is what he did after that moment. He turned pain into obsession. He turned embarrassment into discipline. He turned one coach's decision into a personal contract with himself. And this is where the emotional core of the story really lives. Imagine being 15 years old. You love this game more than anything. You believe you are good. You believe this is your path. Then you walk to the locker room door. You look at the sheet of paper. You scan for your name. And your name is not there. That small moment, that simple paper, feels like the whole world collapsing. You feel every eye on you. You feel smaller than your real height. You feel like your dream just got erased with one decision. You go home. You shut your bedroom door. You cry, not just from sadness, but from anger, shame, frustration. And in that silence, you make a choice. You can let that paper define you, or you can decide that this paper will one day be a footnote in your story. Michael Jordan chose the second path. He took every emotion from that night and stored it away. He kept it like fuel in a tank that never ran dry. Every time someone doubted him, he went back to that locker room door in his mind. Every time he was tired, he remembered that feeling of not seeing his name. This is the emotional heart of the myth, not the literal roster cut, but the way a teenager turned pain into purpose. From a basketball perspective, that high school moment was the first major test of his mindset. Physically, he was still developing. Skill-wise, he had flashes, but not the full package. But mentally, something heavy clicked into place. He learned that nothing would be handed to him. He learned that talent without obsession was not enough. He learned that wanting something is different from earning it. Later in his career, we saw the same pattern over and over. He took slights personally. He created enemies in his head. He invented disrespect just to stay sharp. That is not a coincidence. It is the same mental mechanism that grew out of that first rejection. That varsity cut became the blueprint for how he motivated himself for the rest of his life. So, is the story a lie? Not exactly. It is more like a compressed version of the truth. Yes, he did not make varsity as a sophomore. Yes, he felt humiliated and heartbroken. Yes, that moment pushed him to work like a maniac. But no, he was not some unknown kid completely thrown out of basketball. He played JV. He dominated JV. He continued to be in the system, on the court, and in the gym. Understanding this nuance actually makes the story more relatable. Most of us are not totally rejected forever. We are just told not yet. We are told to wait, to grow, to improve. The difference between people who stay average and people who become special often lies in how they handle not yet. Jordan treated not yet like an insult. He took it personally. He turned it into 6 a.m., workouts, endless drills, and a relentless hunger. We can admire that. But we should also recognize that it came from a unique mentality that not everyone has or even needs in that extreme form. There is also another side to this story that rarely gets discussed: the coach. The coach at Laney High School was not a villain in a movie. He made a roster decision based on what the team needed right then. He chose size and experience over raw but undersized talent. If you put yourself in his position, it is not an insane basketball decision. It is very easy to say in hindsight, how could you cut Michael Jordan? But at that moment, Michael Jordan was not yet Michael Jordan. This reminds us that development is unpredictable. Scouting teenagers is not an exact science. Sometimes greatness is still hiding under growth plates and teenage inconsistency. In a strange way, that coach's decision helped build the legend. If Jordan had made varsity right away, would he have been as obsessed? Would he have carried that same anger, that same chip for decades? We will never know. But Jordan himself has admitted that not making varsity changed him. So when we answer the original question, we need to hold both things at once. Yes, the story is rooted in truth. Jordan did not make varsity. He felt like he was cut. He used that pain to drive him, But no, he was not some hopeless reject saved by a miracle. He was already good. He stayed in the program. He developed, grew, and then exploded. The rumor part is about how people tell the story. They remove the JV details. They erase context. They make it sound like a total rejection instead of a painful delay. Yet even as we correct the details, the emotional message still hits hard. You can fail and still become great. You can be told not this year and still own the future. You can stand in front of a list without your name and still write your name into history later. For young players listening, here is the real takeaway. Do not cling only to the myth. Cling to the work behind the myth. Jordan did not become the GOAT just because he was cut. He became the GOAT because of what he did every day after that. The early morning shots, the extra drills, the refusal to let anyone outwork him. The story of being cut is not magic. The work is the magic. And for the rest of us, even if we never touch an NBA court, the lesson still applies. Rejection is painful. It will make you doubt yourself, but it can also be the moment when you decide who you are going to be. Not making varsity did not define Michael Jordan's limit. It revealed his response. That response is where greatness lives. So, was MJ cut from his high school team, or is it just a rumor? The truth sits somewhere in between the myth and the details. He was cut from varsity, not from the game. The story is real in feeling, but simplified in the retelling. And maybe that is okay as long as we remember the full picture. Not just the pain, but the process. Not just the rejection, but the response. Thank you for watching this episode of the NBA Saga. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the legend behind the legend, please support the channel. We hope you liked the video. Share it with your friends, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more stories from the world of basketball. See you in the next episode.